You know, the most important safety technology in an 80,000-pound truck isn't the camera. It isn't the collision mitigation system. It isn't the ELD, the following distance warning, the automatic braking speed, the speed monitoring, or any of the other computers constantly crunching numbers while that truck rolls down the highway. It's the person sitting behind the wheel. And that's not me saying it. You're going to hear it from Bulk's Director of Safety, Tim Hamilton. And I think that's important because the trucks our drivers operate today can do things that would have sounded like science fiction not that long ago. They can warn you when you're following too closely. They can detect a hard brake. They can identify patterns in the way a truck is being driven. Some systems can even hit the brakes when it senses danger ahead. But none of those systems can replace a professional driver. Today, we're talking about what happens when you put those two things together. Great drivers and technology designed to make great drivers even safer. And we've got three very different perspectives on it. Tim Hamilton sees the data from the safety department. He leads that department, and he does it with a lot of pride and a lot of commitment. Terminal Manager Rodney Underwood, all the way down in Sherman, Texas, sees how that data can become coaching instead of punishment and utilizes it to make his drivers safer. And driver Jackie Thomas has actually lived through the moment when technology went from something he wasn't particularly fond of to something he was damn glad he had. Because years ago, Jackie thought cameras in trucks were basically there to spy on drivers, like a lot of drivers do. Then came an incident in downtown Cincinnati. There was a pedestrian in a wheelchair, there was a crosswalk, there were court appearances, and suddenly that camera wasn't spying on Jackie anymore. It was evidence. And Jackie will tell you himself, that camera saved him. So today, we're getting beyond the buzzes, the beeps, and the blinking lights and asking the bigger question. How much safer can technology make trucking, and where does the technology stop and the professional driver take over? Tim Hamilton, Rodney Underwood, and Jackie Thomas are standing by. Let's talk safety tech that moves trucking forward. This is Always Pneumatic, Never Static.
You're listening to Always Pneumatic, Never Static, the totally pressurized podcast brought to you by Bulk Transit, where we keep the lines clear, the tanks empty, and the conversation anything but dry. Whether you're running powder, pellets, or anything in between, pull up a seat, crack the windows, and let's hit it.
How's it going out there, Bulk and Spur? Welcome into another episode of Always Pneumatic, Never Static. I am your host, Marcus. Very happy to have you joining us here today. Thank you so much for clicking download or heading over to the website, podcast.bulktransit.com, and clicking play on your chosen episode for the day. That website right there is going to have all of our episodes, so make sure you stop by and check it out. That's also where you can find the quizzes that come with each day's episode. You can test your metal a little bit, help the memory kind of grow, connect the synapses a little bit more. And I haven't said this for a few weeks, but I want you to know we will be having another giveaway here sometime in the near future. And when we do, those quizzes are going to be the way that you're going to gain entry into our drawing for whatever cool prize our producer Jessica and the management over at Bulk come up with. And let me tell you, last time was really cool. Cooling vests, 2 of them. And right in time, too, because these drivers would have had their cooling vests on board by the time these hot summer months rolled around. And man, let me tell you, I would love one of those things for the golf course. Heck, I'd even love one of them up here right now in my studio because I can't run my air conditioning when I'm on the mic. So, you know what? I could have used my own cooling vest, but I'm glad we were able to hook a couple of Bulk and Spur drivers up with those as winners in our giveaway drawing. So make sure you're taking those quizzes because you never know when I'm going to come on and say, all right, these next quizzes that you're going to take are going to get you entered to win something awesome. Podcast.bulktransit.com, once again, is where you're going to find those. Today's episode is a very important one, and I say that every single time that we are discussing safety in any manner. And today's topic kind of leans more to the technology side of the safety conversation. There's a lot of advanced safety technology in your trucks. You guys know that. For any four-wheelers listening out there, anybody that hasn't seen or been in the inside of a truck or definitely hasn't driven one, all of the bells and whistles that you can get on the top trim of your new Chevy or your new Ford or Honda, whatever it is. Think about those, safety features kind of on steroids a little bit. And I don't say they're on steroids because they're so much more advanced than what you might have in your Silverado or your F-150. I say it because they're built to be mitigation for 80,000-pound trucks, which means that they have to be on steroids a little bit. They have to think differently than what maybe your Honda Civic's forward collision mitigation system will think. Because, hey, it's a little easier to stop a Honda than it is a truck with 80,000 pounds on its back. And I'm bringing in Tim, Rodney, and Jackie today for these three very different perspectives. Tim obviously has his eye on safety. He's got his finger on the pulse of the entire industry when it comes to it, and he's got decades of experience in his past dealing with not only safety, but almost every aspect of trucking outside of turning a wrench. That type of experience gives Tim the knowledge and insight to make nuanced decisions that advance the safety capability of Bulk and Spur, and he does it all the time. He's constantly making changes, constantly adapting, constantly evolving. Rodney Underwood, terminal manager out of Sherman, Texas, and the recipient of the 2024 and 2025 Dedicated to Safety and Service Award. That guy has a lot on his plate. We've talked to some terminal managers here recently on the show, and Rob Shope said it best, every day is a puzzle. And we didn't even really get into the safety part of the terminal manager's job when we talked to those guys. And I'm really glad that Rodney's here for this because, as you'll hear Tim say, the terminal managers are a lot of the times the ones that are responsible for the coaching and sort of the aftermath when something happens that needs to be addressed. So Rodney can speak to us from that standpoint. And he's making his first appearance on the show today, which I'm very grateful for because going all the way back to when we launched this thing, Rodney slapped a temporary Always Pneumatic, Never Static tattoo on his face. And that, my friends, is commitment right there. We knew we had a successful podcast when we saw people putting the temporary tattoos on their cheek. So really excited to have Rodney jump in here. And for our driver perspective today, we're bringing in Jackie Thomas, who has some stories to tell us about when the technology actually saved his bacon. And he'll share a little bit on his thoughts about what he felt like those cameras were before they saved his bacon. And that's a really important piece of information because I get to kind of occupy a fly on the wall situation for the fleets that I make podcasts for, Bulk and Spur included. And one thing that I notice is when safety tries to innovate, there is a contingency of drivers at every single fleet that pushes back just a little bit. Not because they don't want to be safer. Every driver out there wants to make it home to their family, and they want everybody on the road out there around them to make it home to their family as well. Sometimes I think the drivers are worried about the distraction of a new piece of safety technology. There's always that little bit where drivers come in and say, hey, these cameras are just here to spy on us. You're watching us when we're not even moving. We've addressed that before. We've talked about that. There's no time for such a thing. Nobody can sit back and watch the cameras for all of the Bulk and Spur drivers every hour that they're on the road of every day. First of all, that would be a 24-hour round-the-clock job. And second, there's just way too many drivers out there for it. They're looking at events, things that are recorded by the event recorders. You'll hear Tim talk about G-force events, hard braking, speeding, that type of thing. And I think it's important to have a driver in on this conversation because obviously Tim wants the safest drivers out there and he wants the best possible habits, and so does Rodney. Jackie can give you the reality of the situation, that sometimes you get a little bit tired. Sometimes you get a little bit worked up, and you have to maintain that level of professionalism that all of you Bulk and Spur drivers do. We wouldn't have the safety record that we have at this company if it wasn't for you guys staying on top of it. But Jackie brings us the very real driver perspective here, and he's very honest with us, which I think is exactly what this conversation needs. There is the ideal safety environment and safety culture, and then there is reality. And those things can absolutely intersect and run side by side, but sometimes they deviate a little bit, and that's what this conversation is going to bring you. 3 separate perspectives all on the same thing, which gives us so much valuable insight and information. This is a really good episode. I am speaking to you from the future right now because I've already recorded the interview with these 3 gentlemen. And let me tell you, if you are one of those drivers that dedicates themselves to safety and is very serious about how you take safety seriously in your job, you're going to love this episode because it just reinforces the fact Tim's going to say it towards the end of the interview. This is one of the safest and best run companies out there. And I'll tell you right now, 4 years of making podcasts for truck drivers, I don't have any argument with him at all. So without further ado, I've teased so much of it and I've even spoiled some of it for you, but that's okay. It's still a really good conversation. So please enjoy my chat with Sherman Terminal Manager Rodney Underwood, Director of Safety Tim Hamilton, and Bulk Driver Jackie Thomas. All right, welcome back in here to Always Pneumatic, Never Static. Let's bring our guests in today to talk about safety tech that helps move trucking forward. And really excited to have these 3 guys in here with us today. Joining us first and foremost, when we're talking safety, we got to have him on here. It's the Director of Safety, Tim Hamilton, joining us again. Tim, as always, we appreciate the time. Know you're a busy guy. Can't thank you enough for being here with us today.
Glad to be on.
We also are joined by Terminal Manager Rodney Underwood for the first time ever. And I also want to say Rodney was the recipient of the 2024 and 2025 Dedicated to Safety and Service Award, which he was given by Tim. Rodney, congratulations on the back-to-back victories there, and welcome to the show, man. We're very glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be on.
And Rodney, remind me real quick which terminal you're the terminal manager of.
Sherman, Texas.
Sherman, Texas. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Also joining us today to bring us the driver angle of this entire conversation is our friend Jackie Thomas, back with us. Jackie, thanks so much for being here. Where are you at today, Jackie?
I am in Indiana, almost to Illinois, headed to Missouri.
Okay, well, glad that you're out there driving safe as always, and glad that you joined us today. Fellas, this is a really fun conversation for me because I always learn about new tech, new gadgets, new ways that we're trying to make the trucks safer out here. And I just want to open this up real quick and ask you guys all the same question right off the bat. And Tim, I'll start with you. When you hear the phrase safety technology, what's the first piece of equipment or the first system that comes to mind, Tim?
Well, when I hear safety technology, really the greatest technology we have is our driver.
That's a really good answer. I didn't expect that. See, this is why I wanted to ask all 3 of you that question. I knew I was going to get surprised by somebody. Tim, expand on that for me.
Well, I mean, you can have all the technology in the world in the truck, but ultimately we rely on the driver's ability to operate safely as possible.
Sure.
The technology just assists the drivers in that operation, but like I said, at the end of the day, the goal is to have the driver be as safe as he can be.
That's good stuff there. Jackie, I'm going to go directly to you now. First and foremost, react to what Tim said there. Do you agree when you hear safety technology, are you thinking of yourself first?
Yes, I am. I'm thinking of myself first, and I'm thinking of the people surrounding me next.
And what else do you think about when I say safety technology? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yes, I mean, as far as the truck goes, wise, I mean, it will let you know when you're getting close to somebody, and it seems like if you're setting on cruise too, going down the road here, and then there's nobody even around you, it seems like it wants to wake you up by kicking the cruise off and hitting the brake.
Wake you up, huh? I know you're not driving staring at the back of your eyelids. You got too good of a safety record for that, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you.
Rodney, I'm coming over to you real quick. When I say safety technology, what comes to mind first for you?
And, you know, to piggyback off of Tim, second to the drivers, of course, I would have to say our camera system would be the most significant aspect of our safety features that we have. I know Tim sat through plenty of trials and depositions, and without these cameras, we would have probably been on the hook for a lot of accidents that we are not at fault at and that weren't preventable.
Sure, sure. Now, do you ever get any pushback from drivers on the cameras? I've asked Tim that question before, and we'll come back to him on that. But Rodney, as a terminal manager, that's something that you might see from time to time as well. If you do see it, how do you typically address that with drivers and sort of put them at ease?
Well, it's as simple as that, you know, if these drivers are conducting themselves in a professional manner, and that's what we try to hire, professional drivers, those cameras are simply there for their protection. You know, you can't drive 50 miles in any state without seeing law firms billboard on the side of the road. So when these trucks get in an accident, whether at fault or not at fault, whoever is on the other end of this accident is looking to take this to court and get as much money as they can. So
Right.
this camera system definitely alleviates a lot of that, and it can save a lot of drivers that in other scenarios would most likely be prosecuted before any evidence was even looked at.
Sure, sure. And, you know, nuclear verdicts are such a big problem. I would say maybe even predatory nuclear verdicts at this point in time in the trucking industry. We hear about it all the time. I've done some research into it, and man, it seems like everybody is coming for their chunk of any trucking company that even so much as has a slight fender bender with you. And Tim, I assume that when you hear the word nuclear, the term nuclear verdict, you probably shudder just a little bit, but you've taken a lot of steps here with the safety at Bulk and Spur to prevent those types of verdicts from befalling this company. Talk to me a little bit about that. What types of innovations are you maybe looking into for the future? Because this is an evolving game, right? We're always getting better. We're always getting safer. Is there anything out there on the market right now that's got your ears perked up?
Well, I think ownership here has invested in the most modern technology that's out there. It's available. There's a lot of, we talked about AI. There's a lot of stuff that's in development, I'm sure, but a lot of people probably testing some things. But yeah, I mean, we're always looking to improve the technology to make the fleet safer.
You could really tell. Jackie, I want to come to you for this next one, and this is something that I'll probably ask Tim and Rodney as well, but I think the driver perspective is really important here. I want you to think back 10 or 15 years, Jackie. What's something that we take for granted today in terms of safety technology that would have seemed futuristic or kind of science fiction 10 or 15 years ago? Anything come to mind?
Well, I want to respond to the camera that Rodney was talking about, if that's okay.
Please.
5 years ago, I hadn't been with Bulk very long. Started in February, and March 4th, actually on my birthday, Kim will know all about this. The camera saved me in Cincinnati downtown because the guy in the wheelchair had come through a crosswalk, and while I was turning, it hit the back. We went to court 2 or 3 times over that. I will say the camera saved us. Tim will know that too.
Tim, you have any comment on that one? We talked about that a little bit when I was in Plain City, I believe.
Yeah, the cameras provide a good insight into the events, and it helps clarify of what happened. But you have to realize that it's from one angle, so there's no guarantees, because there could have been street cameras in places, so you're only seeing it from one view. It's really there just to assist, what we see.
Sure. Jackie, were you a proponent of cameras before that happened? Was that something that you kind of liked having on, or was that something that maybe you were a little bit anti until it saved your bacon?
No, Actually, one company I worked for before had them. I wasn't fond about them then. I always thought, well, you're spying on us or whatever, you know. But I learned over time too that they're not spying on us. It's actually helping us, and it will prevent us, losing our CDLs or getting a hefty fine or something like that. So I agree with the cameras.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like after you go through something like that, it's pretty easy to see the benefit of these things. And I always go back to a story that a driver told me a while back, and this wasn't somebody from Bulk and Spur, but he was really anti an inward-facing camera that they had, and then he got a ticket for being on his cell phone, which we all know is a huge no-no as a CDL holder. It turned out he wasn't on his phone at all. He was picking his nose, and had the camera not been pointed at him, he would have gotten that ticket because it was his word against the police officers. So sometimes these things can really come in and exonerate you, and that's kind of what we're looking for here. We know you guys are out there driving around as safely as you possibly can. We don't want somebody's skewed view of something that may have happened end up costing you, your CDL, the company a ton of money. It all kind of makes sense at the end of the day, doesn't it, Jackie?
Yes, sir. It sure does. I agree with it.
Now, I want to go back to that question I asked you, Jackie. If you think back 10 or 15 years, what's something that we take for granted today that would have seemed like futuristic or sci-fi 10 or 15 years ago? Is there anything like that that comes to mind?
Well, not really. Not right off my head that I can think of right away. I mean, like I say, if we didn't have the cameras if we had the cameras 10 or 15 years ago, it would have saved me from a fender bender one time. I will say that. So, and that's been about 15 years ago when it happened. So,
okay.
But I still wasn't in fault because the officer, he could tell by the way the vehicles were setting that I wasn't in fault.
Okay.
So I don't know what else. I can't think of nothing else.
No, that's fine. That's a good answer, though. I mean, looking at it from the standpoint of how it would have been if it happened today versus how it was when it happened, I think is an important little thought exercise there. I want to go to Tim and Rodney here for this stuff because this is kind of talking about coaching a little bit in the aftermath of something happening. Tim, when technology flags something, when the camera flags something, or you guys get a report that comes in, what happens next? How do you go about the assessment? How do you go about coaching the drivers to help them be better off next time?
Well, I think I'm going to hand this to Rodney because the majority of our coaching is assigned to our terminal managers to do direct coaching of the drivers. I may have an input every once in a while if I see something that hasn't been coached, but I'll hand this to Rodney because he definitely does a lot more coaching one-on-one with the drivers. He's 1,000 miles away from me, so it's not like I can bring the drivers into the office. So he's my eyes and ears down there. So maybe he can talk a little bit more about that.
Rodney, we'll kick it over to you. When tech flags something, maybe it's you get a shot from a camera or you get a hard brake notification, something like that. What happens next?
Well, I kind of assess things on a mistake or a habit level. So, we get data from these guys on a daily basis. So if I see something that's a mistake, this might be something that's sent to the driver's app that he reviews himself. When I see that it's a habit developing, we'll bring them in. We'll go over the videos step by step and critique the things that can be and try to alleviate any bad habits that we're seeing reoccur.
And that's actually interesting. How is it that you normally can distinguish between maybe a one-off and a bad habit developing? Is it simply just the fact that you'll see something over and over again, or can you see a bad habit developing, Rodney, the first time it happens?
Well, it's hard to draw the assumption the first time something happens that that's a bad habit. The good thing about our Netrodyne system that we currently use is it keeps a database. So I can look at this guy's performance last month, 3 months ago, currently, day to day, however I feel like viewing it. And things like, distracted driving and following distance, hard braking and red lights, those will show you as what someone's driving actually is, whether it's a mistake or it's a habit.
And would you say, Rodney, that the goal of the technology overall is enforcement or coaching?
Well, the goal overall is to make everyone as best as we can make them at the job that we are utilizing them to do. We don't want to make it a punishment, unless it's something that egregious. This is
Right.
more of a coaching. All of us can get better in everything we do every day, but until you're informed of that, you're kind of stuck with where you're at.
Sure. Tim, any thoughts on that? The enforcement versus coaching standpoint there. I mean, you guys have always told us, and the drivers have told us as well, that they receive coaching when something goes wrong. They receive some grace and some understanding there. This is obviously something that some drivers, it's just a stigma that comes along with trucking. Sometimes they think that this big upswing in the tech that goes in the trucks is meant to micromanage them. It's meant to peek over their shoulder. It's meant to spy on them, like Jackie said. But really, like what Rodney just said, too, this is a coaching tool, and it's meant to help everybody become safer. Can you speak on that a little bit, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, he said it best. We use the data to coach the drivers, not to punish them. We look for trends, not necessarily an isolated event. So if we see a pattern develop, the managers will work with the driver to address it, early. But it's all about continuous improvement. The technology there helps us make better decisions over time.
Absolutely. Jackie, I wonder from your perspective if there's ever been a time where you've received some coaching because of something that went down out there, and maybe it saved you from learning the lesson the very expensive way.
Yes, it did. Tim brought it to, I think it was Scott's attention, or it might have been James at Dundee, Michigan. I was coming over Jellicoe up there in Tennessee, and the speed limit was 55, and I actually knew that. And I'm not going to say I did, but I was running with traffic, and I was running 70 and a 55 down Jellicoe. And Tim brought it to, I forget what's on attention. And they talked to me about it and asked me to slow down a little bit and try to keep it a little closer to the speed limit. I said, yes, sir.
That's simple, huh?
Yeah, that's simple. I mean, they didn't punish me or nothing, and they said they wasn't there to, punish me, like take safety from me or anything like that. Tim wasn't. He just asked them to talk to me and get me to slow down a little bit. And it is very hard out here to run with stay a little slower than traffic. Because traffic runs out here. They really do.
Yeah, man, I think that's going down everywhere. I was just on I-5 over the weekend here in Oregon, and the average speed between Eugene and Portland was running about 80 miles an hour, and I've never seen it like that before. But I drove that route 2 days in a row, and it was the same thing both days. 80 miles an hour with your ears pinned back on a wing and a prayer. And let me tell you, no thank you. That's a little bit too fast for this guy, and way too fast for anybody in a big rig. So I get what you're saying there, man. Traffic is running all over the place. Tim, I wonder when you hear Jackie talk about that, does that make you feel pretty good that you guys were able to rectify that situation without a punishment? Everybody worries about getting in trouble. It doesn't sound like that's what happened to Jackie at all. It was just a conversation between a couple of adults.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would surely like to not have to make that call. I'm hoping that our drivers are abiding the speed limit rather than the flow of traffic. I mean, it's a hell of a lot harder to stop a 80,000-pound truck than a 4,000-pound car doing 70, 80 mile an hour. So I'm not, the main focus of the safety, for the driver is let the cars do what they're going to do. Our focus is just because they're running 70, 80 mile an hour doesn't necessarily mean that we need to. I've seen trucks on the highway where they've seen traffic running fast, and they block the lanes. I've seen them go 3 wide on purpose just to slow everybody down. Everybody's going around them and cutting into them so quick. And I was like, well, I can't really blame them for that because, the four-wheelers were creating a dangerous situation.
Yeah. The old rolling roadblock, Tim, is what they call that, I think. And that's where a CB really comes in handy these days, isn't it?
Yes, and that's old technology.
Right.
That's nothing new. We've had CBs for a really, really long time. And the other technology, maybe Jackie, I'd give him some time to think about it. Maybe we go to Rodney on this would be more, but we can talk about how ELDs have really enhanced technology over the years compared to paper logs. I know Rodney wants to talk about how he works that with operations. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. The ELDs, every single truck running around with one these days. Nobody running double paper logs anymore and doing those West Coast turnarounds like they used to back in the day. Rodney, talk to me a little bit about the advancements that you've seen in the ELDs over the past few years.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It takes a lot of the guessing game out of it. Alleviates hours of service, violations that don't need to happen. It helps you plan out your days. I don't know where we would be without it. I haven't managed a trucking operation without the ELDs, and I could just only imagine the heartaches that Tim had to go through, 25 years ago. Kind of dating the guy there. I apologize.
It's okay. We're very familiar with his experience on this show, Rodney. You don't have to worry about that. Tim, I always think about paper logs, and I think about the amount of file cabinets that you guys probably had back in the day. Is that how you guys were keeping all of your records and everything? Was it just files upon files?
Yes. The good thing is that DOT only requires that you keep them for 6 months.
Okay.
So we could get rid of a lot of boxes. Every month we would roll over the 6 month previous to that, and we could get rid of those boxes. But yeah, it definitely took a lot of space up. In fact, I know we have a little job trailer here in the yard that still contains logs that they've stored. I bet they're paper log books from 15 years ago.
Wow.
That are still in the trailer, just stacked up in there. I mean, they're not useful for anything anymore because like I said, everything gets purged, even on electronic log, which is nice. All the information gets purged in 6 months.
Well, if you ever need to make a paper mache pneumatic trailer just for show, I think you probably got enough to work with there, Tim. Sounds like a lot of extra paper just laying around.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Jackie, from your end, how about the ELDs, man? Did you ever drive with a paper log? Were you around back when that was going on?
Yes, sir. That's all I used to run is paper log until I started for Bulk Transit 5 years ago. And I agree with the with the ELD. I'm sorry about that. Because it actually gives the driver his rest he needs. There's no reason saying that you can't get 6 or 7 hours of rest when you park for 8 or 10 hours. Most of the time it's 10 hours for me, 99% of the time. But back when it was paper log, though, I did run 2 logs. I'm not afraid to admit it, but and you do get tired. You're just out there running. You feel like if the wheels ain't rolling, we're not making no money.
Right. Well, and I'm glad that you admitted it, Jackie, and that's pretty high praise for you for doing that here on this podcast. But if you weren't running 2 logs back when you were running paper, you wouldn't have been able to keep up and make the type of money that you needed to, because everybody else that was doing paper logs at the time was also running 2 logs, weren't they?
Yes, I was. Yes, you couldn't have done it back then, and 15, 20 years ago, and no driver was making the money they are now, which I know times has changed. I do know that. So, but because I learned from events, I guess my dad and my uncles and my cousins that drove way before me. So, I don't know what else to say about that one.
Probably not much, man. Let's see here, Rodney. I'm going to come back to you. I got to throw you a hypothetical here. Tim calls you and says, Rodney, we got a driver who hasn't had an accident, hasn't gotten a ticket, and hasn't damaged anything, but I'm seeing something in the data I don't like. What happens next? You guys putting your heads together and sort of assessing whatever it is that Tim doesn't like, or is it pretty much in your hands at that point and you're going to take off and run with it? Just talk me through that scenario a little bit for the drivers listening that maybe haven't experienced something like this and everything's been going well, but maybe something happens in the future. I just want to give the drivers a peek behind the curtain onto how this process sort of plays itself out. You got a perfect driver. Everything's been going good, but the data's showing one point that doesn't make sense. What's next, Rodney?
Well, we've actually dealt with that situation here, relatively recently. Tim and I will review the concerns he has, and generally I'll take it from there and I'll take that up with my driver. We'll start with a conversation, a coaching session, and if we don't see any improvement from there, we will elevate it from that point. What that may be could be a variation of things from a write-up to maybe this guy just isn't a safe enough driver to be driving for us.
Have you had to make that very hard decision before? I can't imagine you take that one lightly if you have had to make it, where you're looking at a driver and thinking, I just don't think he's the right fit. That's got to be one of the hardest parts of your job, Rodney.
It is, and to date, I can say that I don't recall having to pull a plug for a safety aspect on a driver to date. These guys generally take pretty good to coaching, and they try to correct their bad mistakes.
And they're also trained really well on the outset, right? That's a big part of it.
Yes, correct.
What safety feature sits between the steering wheel and the driver's seat, Tim? Just a random question for you. I know you know the answer.
Well, I guess the driver.
There we go. It's the driver. That's what I was looking for.
I guess it was such an easy, so obvious. I had to say, what was he talking about? It's a driver.
I have in my notes written right next to that question the word cheesy with a question mark. You kind of already answered it earlier, but I had to get around to it.
Okay.
Getting back to what you said off the top there, the driver is the most important part of this whole scenario. And without a really strongly trained and just professional fleet of drivers, we're not having this conversation and really talking about this stuff. We're going to be talking about a bunch of other stuff like what we need to fix and what we need to be better at. But I do want to make a little bit of room in this conversation for that, Tim. Almost every time we have you on, we talk about some trends that you've seen lately. Are there any trends that you've seen lately that you would like to see cleaned up right now?
Well, the biggest one that I've run across lately is seatbelt usage.
Really?
Yes. And, I know, people, you see it in four-wheelers, you see it in big trucks, you see it everywhere. It's like, I don't know the philosophy exactly why people don't wear seatbelt. I hear some people say it's uncomfortable. I hear people say, well, if I'm in an accident and the car catches on fire, I can't get out. I mean, it's proven. I mean, the statistics are out there that seatbelt saves lives. And the worst case scenario that you'd ever want to see is a driver in a commercial vehicle not wearing a seatbelt, get into a accident to where if there's a rollover, you're just going to be tossed around like a rag doll in that truck. You're going to break bones. You could break your neck and die just as easily. I mean, the stats are there that 60% of drivers not wearing their seatbelt die in a rollover.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you got a higher than a 50% chance and also just, severe injuries. You could be possibly taken off of the road, and stay upright, and you're clipping trees and poles, and the inside of the cab is just chaos, and it will, you're just loose in there. You're gonna get seriously injured, to a point possibly you could never work again.
Oh
I think anybody on this on the podcast right now talking will agree that seat belts are essential to safety. I mean, you talk about technology, that is the easiest technology ever invented.
Yep.
Is a seat belt.
Really is. It really is. Jackie, you ever get in that truck without putting on your seatbelt?
No, sir, I can't, because it's got a beeper on it, and it will let you know, and it will drive you crazy if you don't put it on.
Good. That's exactly what I like to hear. I want that truck to drive you crazy if you don't have that thing on. And not to put too fine a point on what you just said there, Tim, but I have two people in my life that I know that were killed in rollover accidents at a very young age. This was when I was in high school, and these were both classmates of mine. At separate accidents, but the same thing, not wearing a seatbelt in the back seat. I lived in a very rural area. They hit bar ditches and rolled, and both of those kids were fully ejected, and in both scenarios, the vehicle rolled over the top of them. It's very sad, it's very dark, it's very grim, but it is a truth. It's very, very possible you're getting ejected out of the vehicle if you're in a bad rollover. And at that point, you don't really stand a chance. You're going to be horrifically injured, if not killed, in that scenario, right, Tim?
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that every driver gets home safely to their family, and on top of that, every motorist on the road, we're keeping them safe as well.
Man, and they don't know it. I can tell just by looking at some of their stupid faces out there. And I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but ever since I started making truck podcasts for truck drivers, I've become so in tune to giving them room out there, making sure that I'm letting them merge or letting them get over when there's somebody pulled over on the side of the road. Making sure to not tailgate them, making sure to not cut in front of them. I take pride in being a safe driver around truck drivers, because I know that those guys are the safest drivers out there on the road. If they weren't, we would be waiting behind pileups all the time. So the fact that you guys are thinking about that as well as your own safety, I think is very commendable and deserves a tip of the cap. And Rodney, I actually want to come to you with the same thing I was just talking to Tim about. Are there any trends that you've seen out there in Sherman lately that you would kind of want to clean up a little bit? Anything come to mind?
Well, I think we have shored up the seatbelt issue. What I see, just traffic lights and following distance are two things that we really need to shore up here out of Sherman. I'm not sure if there's something that stands out bigger to Tim than that does to me, but those are the two things that I see need to.
Now, when you say traffic lights, does that mean you have drivers that are maybe running them or maybe going through a yellow a little bit too late? What do you mean when you just say traffic lights?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're taught when you get your CDL that every light's supposed to be a tail light. Well, as human nature, these guys get complacent. Sometimes can be in a hurry, and they try to squeeze that light, and we see that more often than not. It's they're just not approaching the lights in the correct manner.
Got it. I'll keep it with you here, Rodney. I've got this question written down, and I kind of debated on whether or not I wanted to run with this one, but I just want to throw it out there and see where it goes. Do you think that the advances in safety technology can sometimes make drivers a little bit complacent when they should be more turned on and tuned in to what's going on? Or are these drivers adapting to this stuff so well that it's only sharpening their senses and it doesn't really ever make them complacent? Rodney, what would be your take on that?
Well, we would hope that it is only sharpening their skills and they're not becoming complacent. And I believe with the systems that we have, the driver that's on can speak for me here probably. I don't think they can be complacent because, our cameras are going to be talking to you. Something's going to be beeping. Something's going to be going off. I think it makes these guys more alert.
Jackie, your response there. Now, if you were having a little bit of trouble hearing Rodney, he said that he thinks this stuff makes you more alert, and he said it might almost be impossible for you to become complacent because of all the alerts and all the things going on. Your thoughts, my friend?
Yes, I agree with that. I will, because there's been a times, I mean, even myself, where I've got a heady eyed or just got relaxed too much going down the road is what I really call it. And if I'm coming up on a truck or a full wheel or anybody that I get too close, it lets me know that it's an alert, and then it start beeping. And the camera system will say, that you're following too close or something like that. Well, and the system is good. It really is. I mean, because it's got all kinds of good things to it. I mean, like braking and stuff like that. This truck of mine, and I'm sure Tim and them does. I know Robbie does. If I run up on somebody and they're driving a lot slower than me, my truck will actually like hit the brake. It's what I call a hard brake. It is. So it will stop. It will let you know and alert you way ahead of time. So I think the technology's good on it compared to what it was 10 years ago.
Sure. Now, Tim, will that register if that happens in that circumstance where Jackie's just, let's say he's doing the speed limit and he's cruising along without very much traffic, and all of a sudden there's a car in his lane doing 20 miles an hour under the speed limit. He comes up on it fast. The tech kicks in and brakes for him. Is there any time when you're going to get that and it's going to read that it was an aggressive brake or a hard brake? And if so, how do you coach in that situation? Because we've all come up on it. Grandma merges onto the freeway in her Lincoln Continental, and she just never gets up to speed, and that's a hazard in and of itself. But I wonder how you go about talking through and working through those situations. And I'll come to Rodney after you answer this, Tim, because I want to hear the terminal manager perspective as well.
Yeah, so a lot of alerts are based on a hard braking is based on a G-force event. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you could use your brake to moderately slow down and it won't trigger an event, or you're going to create such a G-force event that is going to create a hard braking event. So there's several different options on that. It's how the driver handles the braking, what it's going to show. But I still say, the biggest thing, the best technology that we could use is driving beyond our headlights. So, when you should be able to understand traffic flows, and you should be able to have the awareness of yourself. These systems just assist us in things. They don't prevent things. So ultimately the driver has to be aware of his situation, of what's in front of him. And you can see if you're coming up on a car, start using some moderate braking, not wait till the last second to have to hit a hard brake.
Right. This is why we say always leave yourself an out, right?
Yes.
Rodney, your perspective on that. I know that Tim kind of gave us a pretty good look at how that situation's looked at from your side. If you get a driver that gets caught up in something like that and maybe they register a hard brake, how do you go about that coaching? What I'm trying to get to here is we all know that there's plenty of things that can be prevented by good, safe drivers, but we also know that the road inherently in its nature is incredibly unpredictable. How do you go about the coaching when something unpredictable has happened, Rodney, and still have a lesson and maybe help the driver improve for next time?
Yeah, and see, I'm going to approach the hard brake because the 80-year-old woman pulling on the highway a little slow, the same way I'm going to approach a hard brake from a guy at a red light. Like Tim said, you need to drive ahead of your headlights. And if you're alert and aware, well, you seen that lady pulling onto the road. You could have judged her speed when she was pulling out, and you probably should have been slowing down 100 to 200 yards prior to your mitigation system having to brake for you. These systems are not to prevent accidents. They are just assistance.
Sure. Great stuff there. Fellas, this has been awesome. We're kind of coming to the end of our time here, but I got a couple more that I want to hit you guys with, and I want to go around the table with this one. And Jackie, I'm going to start with you. From the driver perspective, what safety technology doesn't exist currently that you think would be a really good addition to the lineup of safety features that Bulk already has?
I'm going to be a little funny here, okay?
Okay, please do.
They need to put an arm in here to slap you if they see you getting too relaxed and getting heavy out. No, but yeah, I mean, they're I don't really know what else, because there's all kinds of alarms in here. I mean, and the camera tells you everything too, you know. I mean, sometimes I'll reach down and get something to drink and then say distracted driving.
Yep.
Which I know why it's saying that. It's because of me, because I'm not looking straight ahead. And I agree with Rodney and Tim on that too. Like Grandma coming off the ranch, he said, it is the drivers should be aware of that, and we all know that we can slow down. It's just sometimes I don't know where our heads are. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. I really don't.
Well, that's a pretty good little innovation there. I imagine if they invented that arm to slap the driver when they were getting a little bit too relaxed, Tim, would you sit next to the button and watch the cameras a little bit more actively if you had that ability?
No, I wouldn't want to do that to a driver. You know, all of our drivers are professional drivers. I mean, at the end of the day, they know what's right and what's wrong. So, we rely on their best judgment out there.
Sure. Is there anything, Tim, that comes to mind that you would like to see invented from a safety standpoint to add to the trucks? Anything you can think of?
Not offhand.
They do such a good job with the innovation. I mean, there's a reason that really smart people are the ones coming up with this stuff.
Yeah, much smarter than me. I'm sure, like I said, the technology, evolves, daily, monthly, yearly. So, I'm not an inventor, but I'm sure there's things coming out that will improve safe operation of the trucks.
Rodney, your turn. Is there anything that you would like to see invented? Or maybe I'll add to the question for you a little bit because of the way that Tim answered it there. Is there anything maybe out there on the market that's got your ears perked up? I didn't ask you that earlier. So anything you'd like to see invented or anything that you'd like to try maybe sometime in the future?
Yeah, I would definitely like to see us expand on the camera system that we use on our trucks currently. As when we started this podcast here, Tim mentioned we can only see certain angles. Mm-hmm. We could probably add some cameras here and there to be able to alleviate a lot of questions that we have with the current footage that we get.
Great stuff there. All right, fellas. Well, I think it's about that time. We could go ahead and get to our final thoughts here. I greatly appreciate you guys all coming in for this one. Safety is always so important for us to talk about, and I wanted to think of maybe a different way to approach it this time. That's why we went with the technology angle. I appreciate you guys playing ball with me, and I also want to just tip my cap to you. We know the safety record's great here at Bulk. We know we've got a full fleet of very professional, very safe drivers out there. Jackie Thomas is one of them, and thank you so much for your time today, Jackie. Final thoughts from you before we let you go, my friend.
This guy woke me up talking about this today. I'll be honest with you, because I'm going down 64 here, and I've been so cautious for some reason. I guess it's because Tim's on here. I don't know, but I mean, I'm good working for Bulk. I will retire from here, and I like the technology. I like the way they go about talking to you about some awareness and stuff like this, keeping your head up and your eyes straight ahead and side to side. And I'm good with everything we talked about today. I think the technology, it can get better. There's no doubt in my mind, but I don't have no clue on what what else they would put in here to help you.
Yeah, leave that to the guys with the beakers and the eye protection, right? They can handle that. Just go ahead and keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Jackie Thomas, really appreciate the time, my friend. We'll get you back on here again soon, okay?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good day.
You too, Jackie. We appreciate you. Tim Hamilton, safety director. Final thoughts from you today before we let you go on safety tech in trucking.
Yep, I knew I've been on enough of these podcasts with you. I knew we would have a closing comment, so I wrote something out here. And I guess at the end of the day, the technology that we have, it helps us operate more safely, but it's only one part of the equation. Our drivers that we have, the training that we do, and the commitment that Bulk and Spur has to make continuous improvements, that makes a big difference. So, we're proud and happy of the tools that we do use, but, we're even more proud of the people and the drivers that are using them.
And well said, Tim. I don't think you could put it any better than that. And it is, you said that word in there, it's Bulk's commitment to it, right? You don't get this level of performance without a serious commitment from the company that these drivers are working for. And we see that every day here at Bulk and Spur.
My feeling is they're working for the best, safest company out there in the United States.
I'm right there with
I'm
you.
here.
I'm right there with you, man. Well, Tim Hamilton, you always knock it out of the park for us. It's you're in a very important position, which is the reason we bring you on here. And I think from all of us here at Always Pneumatic, Never Static, we can't thank you enough for the amount of time and effort that you give this podcast, because safety is a really big part of what we do here. And you guys do it better than almost anybody out there. So thank you so much for the time today, Tim.
Thank you.
Rodney, we're coming to you. I saved you for last here so you could hear Tim and Jackie share their final thoughts, since this is your first episode with us. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations again for the 2024 and 2025 Dedicated to Safety and Service Award that you received. Just sitting here talking to you for these short 45 minutes, I can tell that you are very dedicated to that part of the job. Final thoughts from you, Rodney, before we let you go today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you as well. Yeah, I do agree that we do have some of the safest drivers in the country. Bulk, Spur Transit, hands down, is the best company I've ever been associated with. As far as safety goes, without Tim Hamilton keeping the standard up, I'm not sure that we would be sitting there today. So I do want to thank Tim for everything he does. And let's just pray for a safe 2026 and soon to be 2027.
Yes, sir. Is this the only company you've ever put a temporary tattoo on your face for, Rodney?
This is correct. The only company.
There you go. That's a level of commitment that not many have. Rodney Underwood, terminal manager out there at Sherman, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us today. You guys all did a fantastic job. We'll get you all in here again very soon. Take care, okay? Be safe out there, everyone.
Thank you.
Hats off to Tim, Rodney, and Jackie for that. Thank you guys so much for the time. Obviously, a very important conversation. And I want to give a special tip of the cap to Rodney Underwood, because he joined us at the very last minute for that, and he gave us such valuable insight from the terminal manager perspective there. So thanks, Rodney, for coming in last minute for us, and congratulations on being the recipient of the Dedicated to Safety and Service Award. You can really tell that it's something that you take seriously when we get you talking about it. Of course, Tim Hamilton, always great for this show. Can't thank Tim enough. Tim and Rachel are kind of leading the charge right now as far as people that have really given us a lot of time and a lot of perspective on this podcast, and I can't thank them enough. Tim brought us some great stuff today. You can really tell that he is good at his job, man. And of course, got to say thank you to my guy, Jackie Thomas. Jackie has never said no to me once, whether I text him last minute or whether I call him 2 weeks in advance. Jackie's always game to come on the show, man, and I love him for it. We've had some great conversations. A very safe driver, very professional driver, and great perspective for this episode. So big thanks to all of you guys for the help today. Obviously, I couldn't do this one on my own. I've brought you guys some stats here since we were kind of talking about stats a little bit, but sort of in a loose version. I've gone to the FMCSA's website. I've been checking out some stats here. I've got some numbers for you that are pretty sobering, okay? I don't ever bring these up as a shock factor. I bring them up because these numbers are real, and I think it's good from time to time to reflect on this and think about the world at large when it comes to this. Obviously, if you're out there driving in your truck right now listening to this, you are only one person out there on the road, and you can only affect the things that you do. But hearing about all of the things that have happened around you during the year kind of put it in perspective. We're getting a lot of really good perspective on today's episode. So let's start out with the number that is probably the most sobering. 4,171 fatal crashes involving large trucks occurred in 2024. That's the most recent data we have with FMCSA. Now, of those 4,171 fatal accidents, 4,652 fatalities were reported. So in the neighborhood of 500 more fatalities than there were accidents. That comes from FMCSA's crash statistics. It's a really hard number to hear, especially knowing that that is only the ones that involved large trucks or buses. They're kind of looped into the same thing with the FMCSA. However, the one bright spot that we have with this statistic is an important one. Fatal large truck crashes fell about 19% from 2022 to 2024. There were 5,134 fatal crashes in 2022, and we only had 4,171 in 2024. Only might not be the best word to use there, but we're moving in the right direction. And a 20% reduction in only 2 years' time shows really, really good movement in the right direction. Again, getting these from the FMCSA crash statistics. Now, as you guys probably figured out, and we didn't talk a lot about this because it's not a problem that we're seeing at Bulk right now, at least given what Tim and Rodney told me when I asked them about recent trends in safety. Speeding was the most frequently recorded driver-related factor for large truck drivers involved in fatal crashes in FMCSA's recent crash data reporting. 11,288 people were killed in speeding-related crashes nationwide in 2024. Now that wraps everybody into it. That's four-wheelers, that's passenger vehicles, that's buses, that's trucks, that's all of it. That's a lot. We did lose 11,288 people in 2024. That I was able to source via the NHTSA. 29% of all U.S. traffic fatalities in 2024 involved speeding, again from the NHTSA. And 316,757 people were injured in speeding-related crashes. That's a big number. That's a really big number. 316,000 people injured because of speeding. Almost 317,000 people. Look, I want to get to where I'm going as quick as anybody else does. And I can definitely be accused of having a lead foot out there on the highway. It's something that I try to change about myself. It's something that I always try to be conscious of. And I know that you drivers out there listening to this right now are conscious of it as well. We heard Jackie say, look, I was clipping along at 70. I was moving with traffic. But at the end of the day, I needed to slow it down, and got coached up a little bit real quick from his terminal manager, and it was that simple. And it's a conversation between two adults. It's not a dressing down. It's not a scolding. It's a, hey, let's keep this safety score up where it is. Let's keep you safe. Let's keep all the drivers around you on the road safe. And we'll get there 5 minutes later than we would have otherwise. And really, when you look at it from that angle, it's like, why aren't we all slowing down? I told you guys the little anecdote of driving up and down I-5 twice in the last week, and I cannot believe the speed that's being held out there. And the other thing that I can't believe, I'm used to seeing state cops all over that highway, from all the way as far down south as Medford, all the way up as far north as Portland meeting the Columbia River. There is always state cops running. And they're not out there right now. I don't know why. I have no idea if they've changed their enforcement or if they've ramped it down in recent months. I don't know. What I will tell you is solid 10 miles an hour faster than I've really ever seen consistent traffic flow. And this was not a light traffic day, guys. This was a really heavy traffic day. Cars bumper to bumper in the left lane as far as you can see. A lot of them following each other too closely. A lot of people zipping in front of big semi trucks, not giving them enough room. Tailgating them really badly when they get over into the left lane to either get past a slow-moving vehicle or give somebody room on the shoulder. I don't like to see it, but we all know it happens. So it makes sense that keeping your head on a swivel, staying very vigilant about your safety is always the order of the day. Now, I do have a couple more stats here because we talked about seatbelt usage being kind of a hot topic right now at Bulk and Spur. And this one's really serious, guys. I mean, the numbers are so skewed in favor of wearing your seatbelt all the time that it's almost laughable. I get it. Sometimes they're not the most comfortable thing. But being worried that the truck's going to catch on fire and you can't get out, I think is probably something that you shouldn't worry about as much as what if somebody hammers me in the side, you get swiped in the passenger or in the driver's side door. Are you even going to be able to stay in your seat and keep a hold of the wheel and keep your feet on the pedals? If you get hit hard enough and you don't have your seatbelt on, you probably won't. Tim referenced it. You can be bouncing all over in that cab. And a rollover accident without a seatbelt, guys, don't even get me started. I've been to a couple, I've seen it. I've seen the aftermath of the accidents. I grew up in a very small rural community. If somebody was killed in a traffic accident, not only did we know, but we were only 5 or 10 minutes away from where it happened. And a lot of times as a kid, you go out there to see, you go out there to support, be with your friends. And let me tell you, it's something you never want to have to run across. And I know that you drivers know that because you've seen a lot more out there on the road than I have. But just got to buckle up, man. Click it or ticket, as they say. I know that's been out there for a really long time now. I think the click it or ticket adage came about back in the 90s, if I remember correctly, and it still holds true today. They will write you a ticket for it in a heartbeat. They're very serious about it, as they should be. Let me see where my stat is here. In 2024, an unbuckled passenger vehicle occupant was killed approximately once every 54 minutes in the United States. Now, that's passenger vehicles. That's not meant to scare you guys into thinking that that's the number for big trucks, because I had to get a lot of my seatbelt statistics from the NHTSA here. But seatbelts reduce the risk of fatal injury to front seat passenger car occupants by about 45%. Now, you heard Tim reference the 60% number. I think that's more related to trucking, and that's an even bigger number and one that we should pay even more attention to. It also reduces the instance of moderate to critical injury by about 50%. For occupants of light trucks, seatbelts reduce the risk of fatal injury by about 60%, and moderate to critical injury by 65%. So buckle it up. There's no reason to belabor this point. If you're listening to this right now, you heard Rodney and Tim reference it. Buckle that seatbelt. We want you guys getting home to your family safe. We want all the people around you getting home safe as well. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the stats there. I think we've hammered this home enough. I have probably 8 or 10 more stats here that I could read you, but you guys get it. And again, this isn't meant to be a dressing down. It's not meant to be a scolding. This is always the case with our safety-related episodes. This is meant to inform and to make everybody out there a little bit safer on the road. And I hope you got something out of this. If you did, head on over to podcast.bulktransit.com and send me an email. Let me know what you want to hear us talk about on the show. If you're one of these guys that takes safety very seriously and constantly has it front of mind and is always got their head on a swivel, get in touch with me. I'd really like to bring you on and talk about your philosophy and how you go about being the safest possible driver that you can be, while maintaining that professionalism, those on-time deliveries, all of the things that you have to think about with safety coming in as position 1A there. Love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear your suggestions on the things you want to hear on this podcast. So head on over there, once again, podcast www.bulktransit.com. We're going to wrap this bad boy up today. We're over an hour here, which always makes me warm and fuzzy inside because it means that we had a really good conversation and lots of really good information. Be safe out there, and don't forget to tell a friend about Always Pneumatic, Never Static. We'll be back next week with another hour of content for you, Wednesday, 5 a.m. local time. Until then, be safe, Bulk and Spur. Thanks for listening.
And that's all she blows for today's episode of Always Pneumatic, Never Static, your number one and probably only pneumatic trucking podcast, brought to you by Bulk Transit. Thanks for rolling with us today. Till next time, stay safe, keep those lines clear, and keep it pumping.